Okay, guys, so this is Pycoders Academy Python focus video. So in our previous course, in our previous video, we were looking at the part one of the detailed inspect of the functions in Python. So what we learned in that video was the arguments, the types of arguments you have in Python, and we said the arguments are just the parameters in that you pass in a function when calling it and when defining it. Okay, so that's what we learned, and we said the types are the keyword arguments, the default argument, the variable length argument, and the required argument, and we apply them in the practical ways and in our code and so on. So today we'll be looking at lambda functions, which is also known as the anonymous function. So this is a very important function. It's very effective, or it's very important when you want to define just a single line function in Python. So we use the lambda functions for that. So it's basically the very best when it comes to defining simple functions. Okay, so let's move on to the features of the lambda function. So the features are three as follows. So the first one is lambda forms can take any number of arguments but return just one value in the form of an expression. They cannot contain commands or multiple expressions. So what is key here is that it takes arguments. So it takes argument, then it just return one value, then we have an expression here. So let me explain this here. So let's say we have a series of parameters or arguments, so something like d, then we pass this argument inside an expression. So let's say x star y star z star d. So this is the expression. So we are passing this argument in this expression to get only one output. So we get only one output. So one output. Okay, so this is basically what we are saying. We are saying x, y, z, d is our number of arguments, then we are passing it in an expression which is s star y star d, and we are getting only one output. So you get to appreciate that when we start explaining lambda function, we start with the syntax and so on. Then you move on to the second one. Any anonymous function cannot be a direct call to print because lambda requires an expression. So it can't be a direct call to print. So you can't let's say you can't call it directly and print it. No, you just need an expression. Then after getting an expression, then you follow to run your code. So you will get to appreciate that in a bit. Then the last one says lambda functions have their own local namespace and cannot access variables other than those in their parameter list and those in the global namespace. Okay, so let's say I have a function and I've defined variables inside that function. It is only accessible inside that function and not outside. So that's the same analogy here. So lambda functions have their own parameter list, so or they have their own namespace, so we can't let's say call them outside the lambda function. So what is in the parameter list is what we are using. So what is here is what we are using. That's what all we are saying. So we move on to the syntax. Okay, so the syntax is so simple. We, instead of using the def keyword in the normal functions we declare, we use the lambda keyword. Then after using the lambda keyword, then you need your parameters. So let's say I need just one parameter, so x. Then you bring a colon to end the, let's say, the statement, the first statement which defines the parameter and the lambda function. Then you bring your expression. So let's say I have an expression to calculate the square of numbers. So I'll multiply the number by itself. So I'll multiply the parameter by itself. So x star x. So something like this. So I'm multiplying the parameter by itself. Then I can store this output inside a variable. So let's say square. Okay, so something like this. So I'm storing the output inside the variable. Then I'll just print. Okay, so I will just print the variable out, passing inside it a parameter. So simple. So we just do print, then the square, then you pass a parameter by just using parameters and put your parameter inside. So here I'll use a number 2. So now I'll run this code and see. Okay, so you can see I have 4 here. So let me change this to follow the first feature, which it says the number of arguments. It takes any number of arguments, so x, y, z, then I will say x star y star z. Okay, so here it's taking any number of arguments, so will pass. Okay, so let me run this code and see. So you can see I have 3 arguments here, so any number of arguments, then it but return just one value. So this is just one value here, then in the form of an expression. So this is the form of an expression. So that's basically the features of Lambda. You have the Lambda keyword and a parameter and an expression giving out a single output. So that's what we are saying. Then we move on. So this is the syntax. Then we move on to calling Lambda function. So this is how we call the Lambda function. So you bring the variable name, then parentheses, then you pass the parameter inside the parentheses. So that's basically what Lambda functions are. So that's the syntax. That's the basic definition of Lambda function. So we move on to applying them in some functions like the map function, reduce function, and the filter function. So you get to learn it in a bit, so just stay tuned. Okay, so we move on to the map function or the map keyword. So the map function is just a function in Python to, let's say, pass your parameters or pass some specific values inside a function. So let me start with teaching you how it works. So let's say I have a parameters like one, or I have a list which contains something like Mary, John. Okay, then I want to get, let's say, the characters, the number of characters inside this word, so word by word. So I will take this word, then check the length or check the number of characters inside it, then I will take this also and check the number of characters inside it. So that's where the map function comes in. So the map functions just takes this thing and pass, or just take this string and pass it inside a function. So here, let's see an example here. So the map function is just map, it's written as map. So we can store it in a variable like first map. So first underscore map, then I will say this is the list. So let me say I'm getting a list. So when you pass the let's say the parameter inside the function, you should get a list. That is the output in using a map statement. So let me do map. Okay, so that's the function. Then the function you want to pass your parameters in will come. So let's say I have a built-in function like the len function. So here I will put the len function. I won't bring the parentheses. So len, then comma, then your list will come, or the parameters you want to pass in the len function will come. So let's say I want to define a function, a list here. So my list is equal to something like John, John, comma, then Bob, comma, Andrews. Okay, so something like this. Then I'll just pass the my list here. So this is basically what we are saying. So we are saying take each number inside the list defined, then pass it in the len function. So simple. Now what we will say is that I for I in. So since this is a list, we want to get all the values inside that list, then store it in the list we have created So this is the list we have created. So this is the list. So we will store it in the first map list. So I for I in. So any number which comes from this output, store it in this list. So simple. That's what we are saying. Now we just do print, then first map. Okay, so now let's run this code and see what we are getting. Okay, so we are getting 437. So what we are saying is that in this first string we are having 4 characters. So J O H and N, which is 4. Then the Bob is also 3 characters. So when you pass the function inside here, when you just put the function here, then your parameters will also come here. So this is how to use the map function in Python. So when you want to pass some parameters inside a specific function you have created using the map, you just use it in this same way. Then you can create a list to accept those values. So that's what we are saying when it comes to map. Okay, so we can apply this in the basic functions we know, and the lambda function as well. So let's start with the basic function we know. So something like the def. So here we want to create a square, like let's say a function that does the square of numbers. So we get only one parameter, then we say return star. We don't want to print it out, so return star star. Okay, so simple. Now we have this. So we are saying defining a function called square, then we pass a parameter and the parameter should be multiplied by itself, then that's what we will get. Okay, now instead of using the len here, we would like to use the square as we have the name here. So we pass the square here, square. So that's what we are saying. Now what we will do next is we have our list here. So this list is not number, so we have to change this. So I will change this to let me say 1 comma 2 comma 3, so something like this. Now what I have here is that I'm saying map this list of numbers, so this list of numbers inside this function. So this function, the square function. Okay, now it should take each number inside the list and pass it in the function, or the square function we have created here. Okay, so let's run this code and see what we are getting. Okay, so we are getting 149, so that's the correct output. So you can see 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, and 3 times 3 is 9. So that's a simple way to achieve. So instead of writing a long code, we just use the map function to just use a for loop, and we get a list from it. So simple. So the map function is very important in Python. So that's what we want to say in this map function. Now we know how to apply the normal function inside the map function. What is left is the lambda function. So you can see we have created 2 lines of code, but we want to create just 1 line of code by just using the lambda function. So we can just ignore this or clear this. Okay, so I've cleared that. Then instead of this, I'll use a lambda function here. So lambda. Then what will be our parameters? Our parameters will be only one. Let's say the number, so x. Then our expression should come. So the expression is the number times itself. So star. So that's what we are saying. So instead of writing those line of codes, we use the lambda function to just write a single line of code. So that's where the lambda function comes in, and it's very important when you are writing your code. It should be simple and it should be very straightforward. Okay, so we have this. We can achieve the same result by just using the lambda function. So you can see we have the same result here. So that's a way to use the lambda function inside the map function. So here we have treated 2 topics in this let's say in this section. We have treated the map function and how to use the normal function inside the map function, and how to use the lambda function inside the inside the map function. Okay, so next is the reduce function. Okay, so in our last segment, we were looking at the map function and we learned about how to pass the functions inside the map function. Okay, so next is our reduce function. So the reduce function is just something similar to the sum of numbers. So let's say we are summing the numbers in a list. So we use the reduce function to achieve that. So we can use that reduce function. We can use the lambda functions inside that reduce function, and we can also use the normal function inside that reduce function. Okay, so the reduce function is residing in the func tools module. So we just do print, or let me import. Okay, let me see. Nah, I won't need this. So let me say import. So from func tools, then import reduce. Okay, so simple. Now we are importing the reduce function from the func tool. So that's how to use the, or that's how to import the reduce function. So the reduce function is something similar, like we use the same thing in the syntax is the same as the map function. So we can just store it in a variable here, then we can, oh now let me change this name to value, then we can say the reduce, then the parentheses will come. So when you say reduce, then a function should come, then a list will also follow. That's what should be done. Okay, so now we pass a function. So let's say I'm defining a function here. So let's say define addition. Okay, and this addition function takes two parameters, something like x comma y. Then I will say return x then plus y. So simple. Now we are just doing a simple addition here. So we are taking two parameters and passing them and like adding them. Okay, so now we just do addition. Okay, so something like this. Now we just make like you will bring your list here. So I will just bring a list here. So something like my list is equal to, then I will say 1 2 3, then I will just pass it here to my list. So what is basically happening here is that I'm saying go into my list, pick two numbers. So pick the first two numbers, then add them. So that's what the addition function is saying. So take two numbers, first two numbers, add them. Then after adding them, you take that number or the output we got and add it to the next number. That's what we are saying. Now, so let me print the value here to see what we are getting. Okay, so print value. Okay, let me clear this. So now what we will do is just run this code. Okay, so we should get 6. Okay, so we are getting 6. Why are we getting 6? It's simple. We are saying 1 plus 2 is 3, and the 3 is what we got from 1 plus 2. So we are adding that 3 to the next number, which is 3. So 3 plus 3 is 6. So simple. So when you want to find a sum of numbers using a function, and or when you want to find the sum of numbers using let's say a function, then you can just use a reduce function to achieve this. So simple. Okay, so the reduce function will just go into the list, pick each number or pick two numbers and pass it, pick two numbers and pass it. So that's what we are saying now. Okay, so we can try some for the minus also. So let me run this code and see. Okay, so we are getting a -4 here. So 1 minus 2 should give us -1, and -1 minus 3 should give us -4. Okay, so that's basically that for the reduce function. So we have done that for the normal function. We move on to the lambda function. That's for the lambda function. So instead of two line of code or so on, we just do a lambda function here. Then we pass two parameters. So something like x comma y. So we separate parameters by using the comma, then colon, then our expression will come. So x plus y. So simple. We have this. Now we should get the same result here. So we are getting 6 here. So that's a way to find the sum. So as we did in the map, we have done the same thing in the reduce function. Okay, so I think that's that for the reduce function. We move on next to the filter function. Okay, so this is the last topic for the day, which is the filter function. So the filter function, as the name goes, is used to filter numbers, let's say in a list or iterable list of strings. Okay, so that's what basically the filter does. So it just filters or sorts something from a list. So let me clear this, so we don't need the reduce again. We know the reduce. So the filter is not imported, it's just in the Python as the map is in. Okay, so now let's say I have a list here, so I will say 32, let's say 43, 51. Okay, so I will just get numbers which are greater than 30, which are greater than 30. Okay, so now what I will do is I will store it in a variable. So let's say greater than, so something like this. Then I will say is equal to, then we use in the same syntax as the map and the reduce. So we just do filter here. So filter. Okay, now your function will come. So what is the function we'll be using here? We will just be using a function that collect only greater numbers that are greater than 30. So we just do greater than, so that will be the name. So greater than will be the name of the function. Then we pass a parameter which consists of, let's say our list, or yeah, which consists of our list. So let's say I have something like x here. Then I will just say x return x greater than, let's say 30. Okay, so something like this. Okay, now I'm saying return x greater than 30. So when it's greater than 30, then you get our value. So now we will pass the function here. So greater than, then our list should come. So list is my list. So simple. Now we have this. So we are taking each number and checking if or passing the x is greater than 30 here. So we are checking. Okay, so let's see what we get. Okay, I think okay. So if I can bring an if statement here. If x is greater than 30. Okay, now what we will do next, if x is greater than 30, return 30. So what we will be doing is return x instead of return 30. So return x. Now okay, so simple. Now let's run this code and see what we are getting. Okay, so we are not get, okay, let me see. Okay, let me bring a list here, so that let's say yeah, it's supposed to be a list, so I should bring a list here. So let's say I for I in filter greater than. So oh nah, I didn't print it out, so that's why. So print greater than. So let me run this code and see. Okay, oh okay, so let me see. 45. Okay, we are getting the same list here. So let me change something like let's say 23. Yeah, 23. Then I will bring another number also, something like 21 here. So 21 and comma. Okay, so another space here. Okay, now I will run this code and see what we are getting. Okay, so what the values which are greater than 30 are 32, 43 and 51. So that's what we are doing in our filter. So this filter collects the, like, let's say the filter we have, the filter of the function we have pass, and it takes the list to pass it in that function. So that's what we use a filter for. So we can apply this same analogy in the lambda function. So we can just change here to lambda function. So lambda, then I'll pass a parameter. So let's say something like x, then the colon will come, then I'll say where x is greater than 30. So simple. So let me run this code. Okay, so since we have to achieve the same result using the let me see, using the lambda function. So you have 32, 43, 51, the same result. So instead of going through this also of defining a function and so on, you just use the lambda function to filter out and get our result. So that's that for this video. I hope you love this video. So this is the end of the functions in Python way. So we will end for functions here, then we move on to classes in our next video. Okay, so stay tuned. Okay, so thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. Bye bye.